This is Most Julius here with Yag Radio. I have a very special guest in the building today. I have CJ here with me. And first of all, I want you to introduce your platform first before we get into the subject for today.
All right, my platform is the Petrus Lab. Is on YouTube, and I also have another channel called Hazaki Sagor. That's HAZKIESAGOR. You'll find all of my music there, at least everything from 2002 up until date.
All right, appreciate that, man. So let's get into the conversation for today. So basically, when we were speaking before this, I wanted to get into your thoughts on religion and the condition of Black people in general today. Because
Okay, good, because that's exactly what I have here. My take on religion, I come from a very religious background. My father was an evangelist. His grandfather was a preacher. And on my mom's side, my grandfather was a preacher as well. So when it comes to the Bible, I'm well versed in that area. And my thoughts on it today is that it's taken out of context largely.
right.
And a lot of preachers nowadays aren't really doing anything for the community. And that goes back to Margaret Sanger. I don't know if you're familiar with Margaret Sanger. What is she? She does all the gene work, DNA, stuff like that,
Oh
but
no.
eugenics. And she's primarily responsible for abortion clinics and all of those things in the Black community. But anyway, in one of her speeches, she suggested that the larger community get a hold of Black preachers and get them to kind of push the narrative that people should use abortion clinics. But that was just her way of eliminating the Black community largely, if she could do that. So preachers were used for that, as well as slavery, to keep slaves from kind of running amok.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely, man. With the verses that they teach the literal understanding of that, and just just run with it. And if you try to talk to them about like the real meanings of these things, like I can't even find anyone to have like a peaceful conversation just to have that conversation where I can hear your side and hear my side. I've been waiting to get someone to come in and do that.
Yeah, it's largely crazy nowadays to try and do that, especially since most preachers are taking part in this prosperity preaching. It's
Right.
all about prosperity for them. And the thing that I can understand is, I'm kind of getting into my talking points here, but prior to the civil rights movement with Dr. Martin Luther King, Black people owned 20% more businesses during that time. But after we decided that we were going to integrate, a lot of those businesses and stuff went out of the window, leaving us still owning 1.5% of all of the wealth worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So 85% of the wealth is kind of locked into the white society, and you can't touch that. It's just locked in, and that's how it is. And then there's about 13 to 15% that we have to kind of compete for. And largely the churches back in the day were a big part of that. I mean, a lot of them kind of collaborated with the Masonic fraternities and stuff, and they actually built communities. But nowadays, you don't see that in the church. It's all about prosperity and kind of large talking points that doesn't really help anybody.
Right.
Helps the preacher, but it doesn't help anyone else. So we talked about his Hebrew Israelites and that whole narrative that kind of popped on the scene. And a couple of the talking points from that is it was developed, that religion or that sect was developed by Frank Cherry and William Sanders Crowdy. And they had their theory from God that African Americans are descendants of the Hebrews in the Christian Bible. Cherry started the Church of the Living God, the Pillar of Ground of Truth for All Nations, and that was in 1886. And Crowdy started the Church of God and Saints of Christ, and that was in 1896. And then you have Ben Amin, or Ben Israel. Ben Carter is his American name, and he received the vision from the Archangel Gabriel, who told him to lead African Americans to Israel, which he did. He did a good job of it. And when you kind of get the overview and look at the Hebrew Israelites in general, they're one of the only sects that's actually trying to follow uh, the laws of Judaism without twisting Bible verses to push a narrative.
Man, I don't that the Hebrew Israelites, I don't see anything positive in that. The only thing positive in that is, I mean, people try to say it because it's black men coming together, and all people need to come together. But as far as them in the Bible, they are the biggest users of the Bible, of the literal translation of the Bible, and that's all they know. They don't know the spiritual meanings. So everything they're preaching is wrong. Everything they're telling these people are wrong. They're wrong. They're looking at everything from the outside. They don't understand the inner kingdom. Everything they understand is physical. They understand physical places in the Bible of somebody being from Israel, but they don't know being from Israel is an inner thing. Isis, Ra, El. Isis is the spirit, Ra is the divine mind, El is the power within you. They think it's a physical place, and that's what they're teaching people. That's why they're saying only black people are chosen, because they don't know the inner kingdom. They only
Right.
know the outer side. They only know the outer end of it. And I really want to speak with one of them, but most of them so brainwashed that they won't even, they can't talk to anybody. They got to ask leadership, and leadership is never going to let them have a conversation with somebody like me, because they can't have a conversation with somebody like me. They
Yes,
don't understand me.
they are looking at the physical aspects of the Bible,
Mhm.
but still that doesn't help anything with them looking at the physical aspects because they missed that part in Revelation where it speaks of the number that no man can count. That's standing there in white robes praising the Lord. And you know, if you take all of the sand of the earth, which you really can't count that, that's a large multitude of people that's going to be standing there. And it ain't just black people who are going to make that up that number. It is a larger scale of people that's going to be doing it. But they're not leaders in the communities at all. And that's the aspect I have to hit it at because they're simply not. What I see is a bunch of dudes wrapped around the corner, dressed up like the black section of the LSU's marching band, because that's what they look like,
Right.
but don't have the power that, let's say, the Nation of Islam had when they conducted the Million Man March. There's nothing powerful about them. It's people beating on their chest and beating on the drum that's saying, look at us, we're the chosen people. And still it does nothing at all for the community at all because you're not raising anything. You're not adding any fruit to the community at all. And I see doctors, lawyers, scientists, engineers, all within those numbers of men who are led to a cost that's not going to lead them anywhere. So they should be taking that
What they
energy.
are, they're teaching hate.
Exactly.
There's videos of these guys going up to people that are not black, telling them that they're dogs, telling them, just cussing at them. In one of my videos that I have talking about these guys, I have a link to them telling a white man and a white little boy that a black man was going to crack open the sky and come get them. Like black men will be chasing after them. Like this is the type of stuff. So I don't see one thing. I couldn't say one thing at all is good about that religion coming together. There's nothing good that ever came from that. That
No.
is the most evil doctrine that's ever been written. Is worse than Christianity.
And if you take all of the people who's actually left and listen to their stories, it's very colluded as well with some of the men of the organization, really just using it uh, to get women. That's the best way I can put it.
Right.
And they've brought in all these other South Americans to put them under the 12 tribes of God chosen people. And a lot of them have left America to go to South America, wherever, to try and get with these women. So that's pretty much what, to me, that is what they're pushing. And it doesn't make sense at all because it's not moving anything. It's not moving the ball forward.
Right.
It's just a bunch of hate, truth be told.
So what kind of content do you have on your channel?
Mostly just music.
Music. Okay, so
And
definitely got to
yeah,
check some of that.
for the Hazaki Sagor channel, it's all music. And for the Petrus Lab channel, I'm gonna start doing like card collecting type things because I collect a lot of cards.
Okay.
Um, baseball, football, basketball, whatever you name it. And
Okay.
try to connect with people that way since there's a kind of a large market for people out there doing card stuff now. But the um the Hebrew Israelites are not leaders at all. And with everything we have going on, particularly in the black community, um, I just think that's a sect that's going to get people driven kind of into you kind of pigeon-toed in a sense if you follow that narrative, that logic. There's a guy out there named Dr. Stephen Greer, who's a medical doctor for 10 years, then he pretty much abandoned that one to go be a ufologist. But what he talks about is pretty much consciousness and people connecting, kind of on a universal level. And I agree with a lot of his talking points because to me they make sense. I think America right now, as a whole, is just really not a good place. It's not a good place at all.
Right, and it was something brought to my attention the other day, just about how people are always so concerned with their outer, with the outer appearance of everything. And it's like that whole inner kingdom thing is like everybody's so concentrating on I gotta have this or I gotta have that, the physical things. That's where we're at. And it's like we pray for the poor, like they'll mumble from the carnal mind for somebody to help the poor, but we are supposed to be these guys here on earth that's supposed to help them. So we don't ever come together, nothing's ever going to happen, but we'll just mumble to the sky to have something for them. So I think once people start rising in consciousness and we all start to get it that God's not coming back and Jesus is not coming back until we rise in consciousness and reenact that here on earth and show the love, because the Bible says God's love is with us. When we show love, that's God's love. That's God's presence here on earth when we show love here on earth. And I think once people start rising in consciousness, man, it'll be more people to start going. It's a slow process because people are so lost out here, man. And when you start talking like this with some certain people, they really get offended because
Right.
they're not ready for that conversation or they're not on the level to have that conversation.
And that's one of the things that Stephen Greer mentions as well. From his perspective, it is that we're never going to be able to transcend, as he would call it, because of the issues we're having, the wars, the race wars, not taking care of the poor, all of that stuff. And it can be done because we have the money to do it.
Right.
What do you how would you describe the condition of Black people in America right now, as far as just foundational Black Americans? I'm not talking Africans or anyone from the Caribbean islands or anything like that, because they're obviously doing their own things to help themselves. But for Blacks in America, foundational Black Americans, how do you feel about their condition in America?
Man, I feel just well, as I was stating earlier, it's like their whole focus is on an outward appearance. It's like what most of now our younger culture, the hip hop is all like just praising evil, and it's like that's what is called culture for hip
Mm-hmm.
hop. And hip hop is a big influence on Black America. And that's
There's not,
all evil. It's all talking about killing, it's all talking about oppositions, dividing neighborhoods with gangs and all this, and this stuff is praised in the Black community. So
yes,
you can never
yes,
rise in consciousness and positivity when you praise negativity. And people are rich because of this, so the immoral money making. I mean, everybody wants to do that because they see it as an easy come up. They can be rich, they can be successful by leading people down into negativity.
yes. And there's supposedly part of an agenda, according to Busy Bone, from a conference that he went to. There was a narrative being pushed
Mm-hmm.
to keep up the negative energy in the Black community, and it hasn't changed. It's worked really well.
Right, and it's like at this point, it's up to us. It's not, you can't blame anybody. Like, it's a lot of people sitting there blame, but we were put into this and we were doing it. But then it's like it's so easy now. All it takes is to wake up. It takes everybody to join that conversation to say, okay, what are we doing here? We really riding around in our cars talking about killing people. I mean, like, really, we got to look at it as being that stupid. Like, really, once people
Right.
start waking up to that, man, that's when we'll start to see that light bulb. That's what I like to say. When you rise in consciousness, you'll start to get that light bulb. Like, hey, okay, I'm really riding around talking about killing people. What am I
Right.
doing right now? And what you put in your subconscious mind has a lot to do with it. People might not understand. A lot of people don't understand it and don't believe that something that simple can keep you on a low frequency.
Yeah, it keeps you on the low frequency. The comedian Dick Gregory, before he passed away, talked about marijuana, and he said marijuana is one drug that's wiping us out. He said TV is not running rampant in the ghetto; it's running rampant in the middle class communities. Learn who you are. He said 98% of people who fly first class would not be there if it were not for the tax write-offs, meaning black foundational black Americans need to actually start businesses, with a few people and then use those tax write-offs. And he
Mm-hmm.
explained that it cost approximately 800 million, almost $1 billion
Oh
on
wow.
first class flights with people getting free alcohol. But if a mother on welfare asks for apple juice, she's laughed at. And that was part of the thing that he kind of spoke for it because he was trying to enlighten people that hey, there's more to this. And Dr. Claude Anderson speaks about us getting something for ourselves. He wasn't the only one that said that. I mean, Martin Luther King said it when he was doing the what was it, the Poor People's Campaign, when
Oh
he
yeah.
talked about going to Washington to get their check. Malcolm X said it when he said separate but equal, which made sense. And Marcus Garvey, they all have said the same thing, and it's been preached for almost 150 years now, and no one has taken heed. It's just foolishness, constant foolishness, and
Right.
it's like the people don't want to wake up almost.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, it's real deep, man. It's like it feels good when you can actually talk to somebody that actually understands all of that. Because it's
Yeah,
rare, it's rare these days.
I've done a lot of studying. I've essentially read all of Claude Anderson's books. I'm working on the last one now, which is Powernomics, and he explains a lot of the stuff too. And what I like about a lot of the narrative is with Dr. Claude Anderson, he speaks historical facts. That's all. And he uses that to try to change the narrative. And he's been doing this for almost 40, 50 years now. He's to the point where he's old and he's like, I'm giving up. I'm done because even though I'm telling people what they need to do, they're not doing it. And then they
Right.
complain about what's not happening. So this whole thing about black people being the original biblical Jews, if you look at it like that, yes, when you read Deuteronomy, you can make the connection to say, okay, this may be that way or that may be that way. But Sodom and Gomorrah was um destroyed. God destroyed that because of the wickedness that they were doing or engaged in. And the same thing with Moses. When he came down, the people were worshiping false idols and taking gold and making metal calves out of them and all of that stuff.
Right.
And all those things angered God. So if you're going to say, I'm a Hebrew Israelite and I'm following the laws of God, that means you can't have all of that other foolishness in it. Not knocking anybody's religion, but if you're saying 400 years of being in bondage, that 400 years are up, you have to ask yourself, why are we not evolving the way we should be evolving? And that reason is because we're still engaged in all of these sinful things. So it doesn't matter whether you're a Hebrew Israelite, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, the end state's the same for every single person, regardless race, creed, or gender. It's the exact same thing. Everybody's going to die. So it's crazy to me for people to say, we're this, we're that, but you're still engaging in all of these sinful activities and you're wondering why God's not coming back to help you. And another thing that rappers or entertainers or nobody can really talk about is the Jewish community, because the Jewish community was one of the only communities that paid black people trillions of freaking dollars, trillions of dollars.
Mm.
And they did not take that money, being in their positions, to do anything to help their community at all. So you can't really blame the Jewish community if they've paid that much of money. I understand that there's systemic racism, but I also see that you got a lot of money and you're still being paid to push a foolish narrative that you're willingly doing. So I
Right.
don't
That's
I
real.
don't pay attention to it. Kanye gets mad because something didn't happen with a deal, and now he wants to trash Jews and get the rest of the black community
Yeah, and
to
that's
jump on and help him. Why should I help you? You're not doing
yeah, that's
nothing
what
for
I
the
say.
community.
He just talk enough points to keep people on his side, but still he's put out like crazy music. Like somebody brought me to the point that he made a music about porno, like being in porn. Like he still puts out low energy music. He might put out enough conscious music to keep people on his side or say a couple of things to keep people on his side, but he knows exactly what he's doing. It's like once he got a bad deal going in, then he want to start exposing things that's been going on for years,
Right,
things that
right,
you've been involved in for years already. So
right.
it is what it is for the industry. But I'm happy you came through, man. We definitely want to do a part two. I keep them a little short for the radio. But
Okay.
before we go, man, anything you want to leave out there? Any last words?
Nah, man. Just stay studied up and keep your frequency high. That's all I can leave people with.
All right. Again, this is Most Julius with YAG Radio. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome, brother.